Stage 4 stomach cancer. That was the diagnosis. I didn't spend much time processing it before I made a decision. I signed myself up to be an international volunteer with Doctors Without Borders. It seemed like the best way to spend whatever time I had left. Before I headed to the airport, I left a signed divorce agreement on the table for Elena. I knew she didn't really care about having me as a husband, but I wanted a clean break before I vanished from her life completely. The day I actually left, Elena and her close circle of friends were busy setting up a welcome home party for my older brother, Julian. Just as I was about to board the plane, I got a text from one of Elena's friends, Jessica. The message popped up on my screen. "Julian is back today. Are you deliberately not showing up just to embarrass him and Elena? Get over here now. Don't make things difficult for Elena." I could hear her voice in my head as I read it, filled with that familiar mix of annoyance and disgust. Without Elena's long-term silent permission, her friends never would have dared to treat me with such open contempt. If this were the past, I probably would have beaten myself up about it until the sun came up. But today, I just calmly popped the SIM card out of my phone and tossed it into a nearby trash bag. The plane began to taxi away from Boston. My love for her, along with everything else that tied me to this city, ended right here and now. Julian had been sickly since he was a kid. Because of that, my father basically treated me like a walking blood bank. Growing up, I was the punching bag that Dad couldn't bring himself to use on Julian, and I was the lifeline whenever Julian's health took a turn for the worse. I was also the substitute groom who had to clean up his mess when he impulsively ran off abroad. Elena didn't like me. I knew that from the very beginning. Just like my mother and father, her eyes were only ever fixed on my brother. Julian was the bright moon in the sky, and I was just the weeds in the dirt. I had the self-awareness of a weed, too. I didn't fight back, didn't compete, and didn't try to show off. The only time I ever really stepped out of line was probably back in school when I wrote Elena's name in the corner of my textbook, adding a tiny heart next to it. Jessica had forced me to do her homework one day, and out of boredom, she flipped through my book and found that little doodle. She shook out my textbook, laughing her head off, and passed it around the classroom like it was the funniest joke in the world. I will never forget the mockery in their eyes and the sneers on their lips. I stood there frozen, trembling all over. Jessica laughed right in my face. "Liam, do you have any self-awareness at all? You actually dare to fantasize about our Elena? I honestly feel sick for her." Jessica raised her hand and shoved me into the corner. Dirty water from the mop bucket soaked my uniform, and I was so cold my teeth started chattering. The textbook fell to the ground just as two figures appeared at the classroom door. Elena and Julian walked over to the book. Julian picked it up with a smile and said to Elena, "Elena, I didn't expect my little brother to have a crush on you. How about I talk to Dad and arrange a marriage for you two?" Elena crossed her arms, glancing at me with total indifference, looking at me like I was trash. "You know who is in my heart, Julian. Do you really have to hurt me like this?" Julian chuckled softly. He looked very satisfied with Elena's loyalty to him, and equally satisfied with my pathetic state. Even if he didn't actually like Elena, he still got a thrill out of being the chosen one. The truth was, Julian liked Elena's older sister, Maya. That was the reason he eventually ran away abroad. The night before Julian and Elena's engagement was supposed to happen, my house was in chaos. Julian had disappeared. He sent a single text to Dad. "Dad, apologize to Elena for me. I still can't let go of Maya. I'm going to find her." He didn't think about the marriage contract between the two families, the relatives who already knew, or the complex web of reputation and business interests involved. He considered nothing but himself. He left only that short sentence. He had plenty of time to refuse the marriage properly, yet he willfully chose the night before the engagement to bail. Elena's mother was furious, her face dark with rage. Elena sat on the sofa, motionless. Her eyes were looking down, her lips pressed into a tight line. She didn't say a word, but a heavy silence radiated from her like a thick fog. I knew her too well. She was not going to let this go. However, I never expected that I would be the one to bear the brunt of her anger. After discussing it with Elena's mother, my mother decided I would marry into the White family as a live-in husband. It was absurd, but it saved face for both companies. No one asked for my opinion. I was like a piece of merchandise that could be sold at any time. Along with my meager luggage, I was moved into the White estate overnight. She didn't want to marry me at all, but she couldn't defy her family. She couldn't bear to blame Julian for all of this, so she had to blame me. On my first day in the White House, the butler led me to the utility room. "Mr. Liam, this is the room the eldest miss asked us to clear out for you. You will live here from now on." I looked at the cramped, windowless, empty utility room that smelled slightly of dampness and abruptly laughed. The butler was stunned for a moment, seemingly unable to understand why I could still laugh when Elena was disrespecting her new husband so openly. Elena didn't know that this was actually a pretty nice room for me. Although there was no ventilation, it was at least clean and tidy. In my own household, when father punished me, I had to sleep in the stables. This really was nothing. I politely thanked the butler. "I understand. Thank you for preparing the room for me." After speaking, I moved into the utility room on my own and started unpacking. The butler frowned, his eyes filled with confusion and shock. I didn't notice when he left. When I came out of the room again, the sun had already set. Days passed blandly, except for Elena's harsh insults and cold stares. My life wasn't much different from when I was at home, maybe even slightly better. I was cautious, fulfilling my role as the nominal live-in son-in-law of the White family. I thought life would just go on like this, until the day I was diagnosed with stomach cancer. That day was so ordinary that even now I feel like it was just a dream. I came back from the hospital and stayed in the utility room until Elena opened my door, drunk again. The lights were off, and the room was dim. Elena stood at the door, her gaze filled with resentment. I endured the dull ache in my body and struggled to stand up. "Elena, why did you drink so much again?" Elena shook off the hand I reached out to her and grabbed me by the collar. "Julian, what am I to you exactly?" I grabbed her wrists. "Elena, I am Liam. Let go of me. I'm Liam." Elena's eyes were bloodshot as she fiercely kissed my lips. She pinned me against the wall. In front of me was the smell of alcohol on her breath. Behind me was the peeling, cold wall. I felt waves of nausea. The physical pain and the ache in my heart mixed with tears sliding from the corners of my eyes. I shoved Elena away violently and collapsed on the floor, dry heaving. Elena's eyes gradually cleared. She leaned against the door, gasping for breath. "Liam?" Through blurry, tear-filled eyes, I looked up at her. She looked regretful, her eyes darting away. Then she opened the door and strode out. For the next month, Elena didn't come home. At first, I thought she was avoiding me. It wasn't until news of Julian's return spread on social media that I realized she had spent the month abroad looking for him. Julian hadn't had a smooth time out there these past few years. Maya was a doctor with Doctors Without Borders, constantly moving, so Julian rarely got to see her. Plus, his reckless pursuit was nothing but a burden to Maya. I heard that to shake Julian off, Maya had even hired local armed security to escort him to the airport. And this time, Julian encountered a terrorist attack and was nearly shot. Elena couldn't rest easy, so she flew overseas overnight to find Julian and bring him back. The day she returned to the estate, I heard her conversation with her grandfather at the door. When Julian willfully left the country, disregarding the reputation of both families, the family married Liam over here. I initially didn't think much of the quiet kid who wouldn't make a sound, even if you hit him, but after so many years of marriage, I've grown to like him more and more. He never crosses the line. He's sensible and dutiful. Grandfather continued, I heard from the family that Julian knows he was wrong and wants to come back. I see right through him. His mind is too active. Seeing that the eldest sister ignores him, he remembers you again. Elena, I'm warning you. You are not allowed to get involved with him anymore. Live your own life properly. Do you hear me? I looked through the crack in the door. Elena sat in front of Grandfather without saying a word. I smiled self-deprecatingly. She had liked Julian for 20 years. How could she possibly let go just like that? And Grandfather? Well, I don't have many days left anyway. I walked silently to the kitchen. Since getting sick, I hated the smell of grease and smoke. It made me nauseous. But today, I suddenly really wanted a bowl of soup. When I was 6 years old, I met Elena for the first time, and she dragged me to eat a bowl of soup. Julian had disliked me since childhood. Whenever he got angry, Father made me sleep in the stables. It happened so much that the stables became my second home. That summer, Elena came to stay at our house for a bit. After everyone had finished eating, I walked to the housekeeper Uncle Grant's shack, waiting for him to get me some food. The door slowly pushed open, but it wasn't Uncle Grant who returned. It was an impossibly pretty little girl. She held a bowl of vegetable soup and walked up to me. Liam, even though it was your fault for breaking Julian's model, seeing as you haven't eaten all day, here. Elena shoved the vegetable soup into my hands, turned with a cold face, and left. The taste of that soup stays with me to this day. The hot steam from the pot stung my eyes. I snapped back to reality, looking at the boiling noodles. After the diagnosis, I never had much strength, and my hand holding the pot trembled slightly. Suddenly, a cold voice said "Liam" from behind me. My heart seized, my hand shook, and boiling water splashed from the stove onto my foot. Elena rushed over and pulled me away. Before I could react, she had already helped me onto the sofa. Elena looked at me coldly and scolded me in a low voice. Liam, our family hasn't mistreated you to the point of starving you, have we? You can't even hold a pot? Elena's dark eyes were full of disdain as she smirked coolly. What? Did you hear Grandfather and me talking and got scared I'd divorce you to marry Julian, so you're pulling a pity stunt? Before I could speak, Elena sneered again. Save it. Grandfather likes you, but my business is decided by me alone. Put away your little schemes. Elena took out some ointment and shoved it into my hand. Apply it yourself. I looked down at the ointment, remaining silent. Apply it. Hurry up. What are you thinking about? Elena's face was full of impatience. I rubbed the tube of ointment, feeling only exhaustion. When I was little, I tried to resist, but all I got in return were beatings and long periods of starvation. Gradually, I learned to accept injustice, learned to remain silent, learned to stop fighting back. But now I was dying. I didn't want to live this life anymore. I wanted to live for myself once, just like Julian did. I was just a substitute groom anyway. If Julian wanted to rekindle things with Elena, I should know my place and step aside. The physical pain tormented me so much, I didn't even have the strength to talk to Elena. Compared to the stomach pain, this little burn on my leg was nothing worth mentioning. I frowned, clutching my stomach, and took a long time to recover. Only then did I look at Elena and speak softly. Elena, let's get a divorce. Elena froze for a moment, a mocking expression surfacing on her face. Liam, do you know what you're saying? What, seeing that playing tough doesn't work, you want to try reverse psychology? I ignored the sarcasm in her tone. I raised my eyes to look directly at her and replied faintly. Julian is back. Elena, you don't want to waste time with me anymore, right? Separating sets us both free. Elena's eyes turned cold. Whether I want to waste time with you is my business, Liam. It's not your place to bring up leaving. Elena stood up, glanced at me coldly, and turned to leave. I lowered my eyes, hiding all emotion. It turned out that in her heart, I didn't even have the right to mention divorce. That night, I went back to my room and packed my luggage. Yesterday, I had already signed up as an international volunteer. Signing up wasn't because of any noble ideas. I just wanted to go out and see the world. I didn't have much money, so volunteering was the best choice. In the final moments of my life, I didn't want painful chemotherapy, nor did I want to stay in Boston, this place that had trapped me for over 20 years. Julian returns tomorrow, and I leave for Kenya tomorrow. Before leaving, I went to the hospital one more time. Holding the exam report, sitting alone on a bench in the hallway, I received a call from my father. His tone was icy, as if issuing a mission. Julian is coming back tomorrow. You follow him to the hospital. His health hasn't been good lately. He needs a transfusion. I gripped the phone tightly and said nothing. Father's tone on the other end became impatient. Liam, I'm talking to you. Did you hear me? My expression remained calm as I lowered the phone and hung up. I could imagine how angry and shocked my father was on the other end. I didn't want to care anymore. I didn't want to care about anyone. The day I left, a light rain was falling over Boston. No one knew I was leaving because everyone was busy preparing for Julian's welcome reception, including Elena. She hadn't been back to the estate in a long time, so naturally she didn't care about the movements of her husband. I put the divorce agreement on the table, looked around the place I had lived for 3 years, and dragged my suitcase out. Just before takeoff, I got that call from Jessica. Liam, Julian is back today. Are you deliberately not showing up just to embarrass him and Elena? Get over here now. Don't make things difficult for Elena. The tone was filled with the same disgust and impatience as always. There wasn't a ripple in my heart. Jessica was still rambling on the other end. I hung up, popped out the SIM card, and threw it into a trash bag. The plane roared. I sat in the cabin, looking at the clouds outside the window. This was my first time leaving Boston. The plane taxied away. My love and all our stories finally ended right here and now. I had been in Kenya for half a month. The situation here was worse than I imagined. Extremely polluted water and air, houses that could be washed away by floods at any moment, and hungry children begging on the streets. Every single thing touched my soul. I taught over 20 children in Kenya. The youngest was only 6, the oldest 15. Although poor, they knew that knowledge was the only way to change their destiny. In the half-month I spent with them, I felt unprecedented kindness, and I even became a lot more cheerful. Early this morning, another volunteer teacher found me, his face full of excitement. Liam, a new medical team arrived in town today. I heard the team leader is beautiful. Want to go check it out? I packed up the students' textbooks and smiled at Sam. You go ahead. I'll find you in the cafeteria for lunch. Seeing me unmoved, Sam had to go to the town's small square alone. At lunchtime, I took the kids to the cafeteria. Just as I sat down, Sam sat next to me, beaming. Liam, it's a pity you didn't go just now. The lead doctor is a beauty. I raised an eyebrow and teased Sam. How many beauties have you seen in your life? Sam laughed too, his tone serious. I'm serious. Really, really beautiful. I finally understand why everyone loves a woman in uniform. Before Sam could finish, a commotion broke out in the cafeteria. Sam and I stopped talking. Hearing the noise, we looked up at the door. Several doctors were walking toward us. The lead doctor was tall and slender. She wore a white coat, her brows cool and elegant, her long hair tied in a sharp ponytail. Although the emotion in her eyes was indifferent, seemingly keeping people 1,000 miles away, her face was just too good-looking, causing everyone in the cafeteria to fix their eyes on her. Without missing a beat, Sam's eyes lit up and he grabbed my arm. whispering an exclamation. "Liam, that's her! The team leader!" The cafeteria was buzzing, but my pupils suddenly contracted, and I was stunned. It was Maya. Perhaps our gaze was too direct. Maya seemed to sense it. She glanced sideways at Sam and me. This face had too much impact. I clearly heard Sam suck in a breath of cold air. The moment my eyes met Maya's, I instinctively lowered my head. Maybe because this face looked 50% like Elena's, or maybe because seeing her made me think of those people in Boston. Anyway, I avoided it, lowering my head to focus on picking at the food on my plate. The noise around us rose and fell. I looked at the food, trying to concentrate on what story to tell the children this afternoon. Suddenly, Sam's amazed voice came to an abrupt halt. A flash of white appeared in my peripheral vision. I looked up. Maya put down her tray and sat opposite me. Seeing me look at her, her eyes were calm as her thin lips parted slightly. "You don't mind if I sit here, do you?" I gripped my fork tightly, saying nothing. Maya didn't speak either, just gazing at me faintly. Only Sam was overly enthusiastic. "Not at all, not at all. Sit wherever you like." Maya smiled slightly and nodded at Sam. Sam's hand was on my thigh, and I could feel him squeezing it in excitement. I sighed almost inaudibly in my heart. Elena was beautiful too, but compared to Maya, her beauty would be dimmed into dullness. If it weren't for this face, given Julian's arrogant nature, he wouldn't have liked Maya for so many years. Julian. I wondered if Elena had seen the divorce agreement. It had been half a month. I guessed Elena was currently fighting with the family, demanding to marry Julian. I poked at the food in my plate, my mind wandering. "Didn't you hate cilantro when you were little?" A clear female voice came from across the table. I realized belatedly that I should look up at Maya. Her eyes were dark, fixed on me. It took me a while to realize Maya was talking to me. Growing up, Maya and I hadn't met 3 times in total. I was a bit surprised she even recognized me. Beside me, Sam looked confusedly at Maya and then at me. "Liam, you guys know each other?" I felt awkward. Just as I was thinking about how to explain my half-acquaintance relationship with Maya to Sam, Maya spoke. "Yes, we know each other, though we haven't seen each other for many years." After speaking, Maya chuckled lightly, her tone seemingly carrying a hint of loneliness. "But you don't seem to remember me very well, Liam." I froze on the spot. Maya's tone was too familiar, making me momentarily flustered, not knowing how to react. Maya still looked at me with a faint smile. Sam's mouth hung open. I fidgeted for a long time before choosing the most polite reply. I looked at Maya with a smile. "How could I not remember? Long time no see, Maya." Maya chuckled. Lunch passed in my awkwardness. Leaving the cafeteria, Sam and I took the children back. As soon as I sat in the office chair, Sam looked at me impatiently. "All right, Liam. You know such a beauty and didn't tell me." Sam shook my shoulders. I was shaken into a dizziness and quickly begged for mercy. "I didn't know the doctor you were talking about was her, and I haven't seen her in a long time. I didn't know she would come here." "You two seemed so familiar. She even knew you don't eat cilantro, and you dare say you didn't know?" I spread my hands helplessly. "I really didn't know, and we haven't met many times. Why she would know I don't eat cilantro, I didn't know either." In my memory, Maya and I didn't have much interaction. The first time I met Maya was when she and Elena came to stay at my house. Back then, I didn't even remember her name. That whole summer, I only remembered Elena handing me a bowl of vegetable soup. Regarding Maya's appearance, my biggest worry was whether she would tell Elena. If Elena knew, Julian and the family would definitely come looking for me to drag me back. I didn't want to be Julian's blood bank anymore. I clenched the textbook in my hand, my expression dark, considering whether to change locations. But after a few days together, I realized my worry was unnecessary. Maya never asked me about Elena or the family, as if she didn't care at all why I appeared in Kenya. I played eagle catches chick with the kids. She joined me as the eagle. I drew on the ground with them. She drew with us, too. When Sam and I assembled desks and chairs, she would take the tools from my hand and help us assemble them. Whenever there was free time at the hospital, Maya would come over to help add some teaching materials to our small classroom. Over time, the looks from the students and Sam became subtle. Sam once whispered to me, "Liam, I think Dr. Lin likes you." I smiled helplessly. Divorced or not, I was once her brother-in-law. Someone as out of reach as Maya, how could she possibly like me? I told Sam, "She helps us so much just because she's a good person. Don't overthink it." Sam grinned and curled his lip, obviously not believing it. Days passed, and I gradually forgot about Boston and the people there, until Sam was scrolling through posts and accidentally saw a news item about Elena and Julian. Julian was entering a marriage alliance, but the bride wasn't Elena. It was an heiress from New York. He seemed extremely unwilling about this marriage, so he got drunk late at night and cried bitterly. The news described it in extreme detail. I looked at the photo below. Julian stood at the entrance of a bar looking drunk, with Elena standing in front of him. He hugged Elena, eyes teary. Looking at this news, I frowned slightly. Elena didn't marry Julian. 3 years ago, she couldn't defy family opinion and recruited me as a live-in husband. But 3 years later, she could already stand alone in the company. If she was dead set on marrying Julian, no one could stop her. Was it because of grandfather? My thoughts drifted, then I forcibly pulled myself back. Whether she marries Julian or not, what does it have to do with me? Liam, stop thinking about it. After warning myself, I concentrated on preparing the lesson content for the next 2 days. After 3 days of continuous work, my body started to hurt. Actually, after coming to Kenya, perhaps because of my good mood, I rarely felt pain. I didn't know what was wrong today. Early in the morning, it hurt so much that I broke out in a cold sweat. I collapsed on the podium. When I opened my eyes again, I was in the town hospital. Maya was sitting by my bed, looking at me unblinkingly. Seeing me wake up, she quickly leaned over and held my hand. "Liam, you're awake." "Maya." My throat felt rough and dry, as if filled with sand. Maya poured me a glass of water, and I propped up my dizzy head to sit up. I took the glass to drink, my gaze unintentionally landing on the medical report on the bedside table. It was mine. The words "stomach cancer" were very obvious. I lowered my eyes. Maya must know by now. I was momentarily curious about her reaction. I looked up at Maya beside me. She stared at me fixedly, her dark eyes deep, harboring emotions I couldn't decipher. From beginning to end, she didn't ask a single question, so I didn't say anything either. Maya suggested I stay in the hospital for 2 more days, but I was really worried about the kids, so I insisted on being discharged. She had no choice but to drive me to the school. I was weak when getting out of the car. She supported me, and I didn't refuse. Just as we reached the school gate, a group of children surrounded us. "Teacher, where did you go?" They chirped questions at me. Afraid they would worry, I just said, "Teacher went to town for a bit. Have you guys been behaving and studying hard these past few days?" They nodded obediently, and I touched their shoulders with relief. Maya supported me, planning to walk me to the office. I was afraid of troubling her too much. Just as I intended to pull my hand away, I heard an angry shout from the classroom door, not far away. "Liam!" I looked up. Elena stood at the classroom door, her face gloomy and pale with rage. And behind her was Julian, in a sharp suit, equally suppressing his anger. "Elena?" I had been away from Boston for 3 months. Seeing Elena and Julian again, it felt unreal, like a lifetime ago. Elena and Julian stared dead at Maya's hand supporting my arm. Their gaze was too intense. I felt uncomfortable and simply pulled my arm out. "Thank you for bringing me back, Maya." Maya glanced at the two people opposite us with indifference, then smiled at me. Julian looked at Maya's expression, then at me. His fists at his sides clenched tight, grinding his teeth. He could barely suppress his anger, but with Maya there, he couldn't explode at me. I couldn't be bothered with his love-hate drama. I called Sam over, asked him to take the kids to class first, and slowly walked back to the dorm myself to get my books. I hadn't taken 2 steps before Elena stepped forward and grabbed my wrist. "You left Boston without a word. Do you know how long I looked for you? Seeing your wife, shouldn't you say hello first? Husband?" Elena said these 2 sentences through gritted teeth. She stared dead at my face, hoping to see guilt or shame in my expression. But I was expressionless, devoid of any emotion. I looked into Elena's blazing eyes. "I'm not your husband. We're already divorced. Let go of me, Elena. I need to get my books." The flatness in my tone thoroughly enraged Elena. She was burning with anger, yet she laughed. "Liam, 3 months no see and you've grown a temper, huh?" She glanced at Maya, her tone cold. "There are outsiders here now. Whatever we have to say, we husband and wife should say it behind closed doors. Come, let's go home." Saying that, she yanked my wrist, dragging me outward. Seeing this, Maya was about to step forward to stop Elena, but I shook off Elena's hand first, with such force that I nearly tripped myself. Elena froze. I held my reddened wrist and looked at her coldly. "This is my home. Where are you taking me?" Elena stared at me blankly. My tone dropped a degree colder. "Do I have to say it again? I already sent you the divorce papers. We have no relationship. Elena, do you not understand English?" Perhaps my tone was too harsh and stinging. Elena was stunned for a long time before she came to her senses. Julian stood behind Elena, looking at me in shock as well. I glanced coldly at Julian. "You 2 trespassed into our school and disturbed the children's class. That's illegal. Before I call the police, leave immediately. The school doesn't welcome you." Leaving that sentence behind, I ignored the various expressions on their faces and turned to walk into the dorm. The moment I closed the door, I heard Julian's angry voice questioning me. "Liam, you dare talk to me like that?" I picked up the book on the cabinet, my emotions not fluctuating for a second because of him. Maya had work at the hospital, so she went back first. When she left, she called local security to take Elena away too. Although Elena had always resented her older sister because of Julian, when Maya really turned cold, Elena couldn't hide the fear in her heart. Julian, needless to say, wherever Maya appeared, he would follow like a shadow. So he followed Maya's tail and went to town too. For a moment, the school emptied out. After class that evening, Sam looked at me worriedly. "Liam, those 2 people today looked aggressive. Will they hurt you?" I smiled and shook my head. They had already hurt me long ago. From the day I left Boston, I had classified them as strangers. So no matter what they did to me, it didn't itch or sting. Early the next morning, as soon as I walked out of the dorm, I saw Elena guarding the door. I wanted to pretend I didn't see her and walk around, but she stepped forward and blocked my way. "Liam." I squeezed my eyes shut tight, suppressing the anger inside. "Elena, what exactly do you want? I dropped the business in Boston and traveled thousands of miles to Kenya. What do you think I want to do?" I looked up at Elena. Her jaw was clenched. She looked furious. My expression was cold. "Did you see the divorce agreement I left on the table?" Elena was stifled for a moment, then replied snappishly. "I saw it. I didn't sign it." Elena looked at me. "I know you want a divorce because Julian came back. I admit I didn't like you when we first got married. I also admit I hesitated when Julian returned, but I swear I never thought about divorcing you." Julian, I only see him as a brother now. You left home without a word. Did you consider my feelings? Even if you don't consider me, what about grandfather? He's 80 years old and worrying about you." I listened to Elena's accusations expressionlessly. The more she spoke, the angrier she got. But seeing my completely unmoved expression, she seemed to give in helplessly at the end. "Liam, I've come all the way to Kenya to find you. Can you stop making a scene?" Hearing this, I laughed coldly. "Elena, when will you realize? I want to divorce you not to make a scene and not because Julian is back. I just want a divorce." Elena looked stunned. She had thought of countless possibilities, but never that I actually wanted to leave her. Students were arriving at school one after another. I looked at Elena in front of me and frowned impatiently. "I've made myself clear enough. I won't go back to Boston with you, and don't come looking for me again. Go back, Elena." Elena's lips were a tight line. There was no emotion on her face as she stood motionless. Afraid the students and teachers would see her, I was anxious. Just as I was about to open my mouth to chase her away again, my phone rang. I picked it up. "Hello, Maya?" Elena raised her cold brows, looking at my call screen. "Liam, my driver is on the way to pick you up at the school. You need to come to the hospital for a checkup this afternoon. I prescribed a few bottles of medicine for you. They're very effective for stomach pain. You can take them back with you then." Maya's voice was clear. Although her tone was flat, I could hear her concern. I gripped the phone and replied softly, "I know. Thank you, Maya." Maya was silent for a moment. "Elena went to find you again, right?" I hummed a, "Yeah." "I've already notified the family. They'll take Elena and Julian back in a couple of days. Don't worry. As long as you don't want to go back, I guarantee they will never appear in front of you to bother you again." I looked down at the pebbles by my feet. For over 20 years, no one had ever considered me like this. I couldn't describe the feeling in my heart, or even know how to repay her care for me properly. I was silent for a long time, finally only managing to say, "Thank you." I hung up. Elena's face was dark. "My sister's call." I ignored her. Elena scoffed. "Liam, you insist on divorcing me. Is it because of her?" I frowned and looked at Elena. "What are you talking about, Elena?" Elena smirked coldly, mockery in her eyes. "You fell for my sister just like Julian did, right? So you insist on divorcing me, insist on staying in this god-forsaken place? Heh, Liam, you brothers really are two peas in a pod. What is so good about Maya? Making both of you lose all your dignity, sticking to her side like desperate—" Before Elena could finish, I used all my strength to slap her across the face. Elena's head snapped to the side from the blow. Her hair was messy, her right cheek red and swelling high. My hand tingled numb from the shock. I gasped for breath, staring dead at Elena. "Elena, you are truly shameless." I had actually liked someone like this. Liked her for so many years. If given a chance to do it over, I think I would definitely refuse that bowl of vegetable soup. Elena kept her head turned, her mouth pressed tight, saying nothing. The veins in her eyes were frighteningly red. Maya's driver arrived at the school gate and honked at me. I nodded to him, not looking at Elena again, and got in the car. As soon as I walked to the door of Maya's office, I saw Julian sitting on a wooden bench. He was dressed in Milan spring-summer haute couture, looking flashy, craning his neck to look inside the office. Sitting next to him was a disheveled woman holding a dirty-faced child. The child sucked on his finger, looking at Julian with innocent eyes. He pulled the finger out of his mouth, saliva dripping, and reached for Julian. By the time Julian reacted, his suit was stained with dark smudges. Julian went mad with rage. He stood up and viciously cursed the woman and child. "You peasants! Do you know how much this suit costs? Can you afford to pay for it?" The woman hugged the crying child, looking terrified, bowing repeatedly in apology. Julian was furious. He shoved them. The woman stepped back with the child. Her leg caught on the bench and she tripped, losing her balance. The hallway fell into chaos. Maya strode out of the office. Julian stood aside, guiltily. The child seemed to have bumped his head and wouldn't stop crying. Seeing this, I quickly stepped forward to help, picking up the woman's scattered belongings. Maya, they dirtied my clothes first, then she fell on her own. It's not my fault. Julian looked at Maya cautiously, his expression aggrieved and innocent. Maya ignored him. She took the things from my hand and looked at me. Liam, wait for me in my break room. I'll come find you after seeing this patient. I nodded. Maya didn't spare Julian a glance. Hugging the child, brushing past his shoulder, she walked into the adjacent exam room. Julian stomped his foot hatefully. He turned to look at me, his eyes full of dark jealousy. In the break room, I sat by the window, watching the birds fly past. I was mentally planning what snacks to bring back for the students. Julian stood at the door with his arms crossed, staring straight at me. Liam, Julian spoke. Since you were little, you've been weak and submissive. Put you in a crowd and you're so ordinary you disappear. I didn't expect you to have the skill to hook up with Maya. I turned to look at Julian. Jealousy and unwillingness twisted his handsome face. I didn't hook up with Maya, I said calmly. Shut up. Is Maya something you're allowed to call her? Julian trembled with rage, staring as if he wanted to swallow me whole. Liam, get this straight. If I wasn't sickly, Father wouldn't have even had you. At best, you're just a pet dog Father raised for me. Now you want to fight me for a woman? Do you deserve to? Julian took a step forward, acting as if to push me. I grabbed his wrist and flung his hand away hard. Julian stumbled from the force. Julian's face flushed red with anger. I chuckled lightly. Julian, if I remember correctly, you seem to be marrying that heiress from New York. Getting engaged on one hand, drinking with Elena on the other, all while pining for Maya. Does that count as cheating? I scoffed. Oh, right, it doesn't count. After all, Maya doesn't give you the time of day. Julian's shoulders heaved violently, fists clenched tight, fingernails digging into his palms without him noticing. Choking him with words put me in an excessively good mood. Seeing him speechless, I found it boring. Ignoring him, I turned to open the door and leave the break room. Just as I opened the door a crack, Julian suddenly rushed behind me. He grabbed my wrist, raising his hand to slap me. But out of the corner of his eye, he saw Maya walking over not far away. Julian's eyes darted. He collapsed onto the floor, clutching his chest as if he couldn't breathe. To an outsider, it looked like I had pushed Julian, causing a relapse of his old illness. My eyes were cold as I watched Julian act without batting an eyelid. Growing up, this was how he acted in front of Father and Elena. As long as he felt uncomfortable, regardless of who was right or wrong, I was the one punished. I was suddenly curious what Maya would do. Would she blame me too? Maya pushed the door open and walked in. Julian lay paralyzed on the floor, gasping for air, calling out softly, Maya. I leaned against the edge of the desk, quietly observing Maya's face, waiting for her to scold me like Father and Elena. But unexpectedly, Maya merely glanced at Julian, then said to me, I'm free now. Let's go. I'll do another checkup for you. Her tone was gentle, with absolutely no intention of blaming me. I was stunned. Seeing no reaction from me, Maya took my wrist and walked towards the door. Julian was stunned too. After all, this trick worked every time. He didn't expect Maya to ignore him like this. He opened his mouth to call Maya, just to see Maya turn her head, her tone calm and indifferent. Julian, this is a hospital, not a movie set. Put away your little tricks. I am a doctor. I'm not that idiot, Elena. I can tell whether you're faking sickness or not. If you want to make a scene, go outside. Don't embarrass yourself here. Dropping that sentence, Maya took me away. Until we walked into the exam room, I hadn't reacted. It was a belated happiness and secret thrill. Finally, for once, someone saw through Julian's tricks. Someone was on my side. Maya was writing a prescription for me. I looked at her profile, the corners of my mouth curving up uncontrollably. Maya caught my secretly delighted expression. She smiled, too, shaking her head helplessly. "This medicine, 3 times a day, 2 pills each time. Liam, did you memorize that?" Maya's eyes were like a spring of water, looking at me with helplessness and a hint of indulgence. I nodded and took the medicine, immediately lowering my head to try and hide the expression on my face. Maya laughed lightly and patted the top of my head. "Let's go. I'll drive you back to school." In the middle of the night, I had an attack again. I clutched my stomach tightly, enduring the physical pain. Outside the door, a violent knocking suddenly sounded. "Liam! Liam!" It was Elena. Afraid of waking Sam, I dragged my body off the bed and opened the door. Elena looked panicked. She grabbed my hand and started running toward the outside of the school. I wanted to shake off her hand, but I was too weak to break free. "Let go of me, Elena. Stop making a scene." "Liam, Julian had a relapse today because of you. Do you know that? The hospital blood bank doesn't have the rare blood type. You need to come to the hospital with me right now." Before I could speak, Elena roughly stuffed me into the car. The pain made my soul tremble. My mind went blank. At this moment, there was nothing in my brain. My whole body had only one thought. It hurts so much. I just want to die and get it over with. I was on the verge of unconsciousness, my whole body feeling dehydrated. I didn't know when we arrived at the hospital. Before blacking out, I only remembered one scene. Elena asking Maya to save Julian, and Maya holding me, punching Elena. When I woke up again, it was that familiar hospital ceiling. Maya was holding my hand, leaning against the wall, fast asleep. My fingertips moved slightly, and Maya's bloodshot eyes snapped open. "Liam." I managed a weak smile. "Maya, how long did I sleep this time?" Maya's eyes held a mist of tears. She lowered her head, hiding all emotions, and whispered, "You slept for almost 2 weeks. But Liam is great, you woke up today." I looked at Maya's restrained expression and said nothing. She stroked the top of my head and forced a smile. "Liam, you have to get well soon. Remember Faye? That 6-year-old girl, your student? She said the drawing you promised her isn't finished yet. She's waiting for you at school." Maya's eyes were red. She took a deep breath, fighting back the tears. "Promise me, don't sleep anymore, okay? Everyone is waiting for you." After getting sick, I had actually long accepted my ending. So much so that death was a very calm matter for me now. Living one more day was earning one more day. There wasn't much to linger for in this world, but I didn't expect there would be people reluctant to let me go. In this moment, I was cowardly. I suddenly really wanted to live. I wasn't afraid of death, but I was afraid of their tears and sorrow. I couldn't bear to see them sad. I weakly lifted my arm, which was hooked up to tubes. I wiped the tear from the corner of Maya's eye. She held my hand, pressing her cheek against my palm. I heard myself say, "Okay." That evening, after I woke up, I heard the sound of Maya and Elena arguing at the door. "Sister, he's my husband. Why are you stopping me from seeing my husband?" "Elena, don't force me to have you locked up." "Sister." Then came the sound of shoving. I sighed. "Maya." The noise outside stopped. "Let her in. Some things need to be said face to face." The door opened, and Elena walked in, eyes red. Maya looked at me. I nodded to her, and she closed the door for me. "Liam." Seeing me, Elena choked up, her voice trembling. I knew my appearance right now must be miserable. Unable to eat anything, yellow and thin, tubes all over my body. But I really didn't need Elena's sympathy and tears. "How is Julian?" "They transferred blood bags from another hospital's bank. He's fine now." I nodded casually. As expected. Disasters always live long lives. Elena sat next to me. "You came to Kenya because you were diagnosed with stomach cancer, right?" Elena's voice was hoarse. "Liam, why didn't you even tell me this? You've lost so much weight, yet I didn't ask at all. I just thought to myself that you must have suffered so much in Kenya that you'd be dying to go back with me. What was I doing?" Elena punched her own leg hard. Her voice choked. "And that night I was too anxious. I really didn't know you were sick. Forgive me, okay, Liam?" Elena's fist was clenched white. She didn't even dare to hold my pale hand with the visible blue veins. My expression was flat, my voice incredibly light. "Elena, sign the divorce agreement. I don't want to still be your husband when I leave." At those words, tears streamed down Elena's face. She leaned back in the chair, tears dripping one by one, then laughed at herself. "I still remember in high school everyone knew you liked me. Now you won't even give me a title. Liam, you really have a cruel heart." Elena's tears dripped onto the white sheet, creating wet spots. It was truly laughable. She hated me so much before. But now, she was the one crying the hardest. Watching her tears, I suddenly felt a wave of nausea. I leaned over the side of the bed and dry heaved. Maya heard the noise and immediately rushed in, gently patting my back. Elena stood helplessly by my side, like a child who had done something wrong. I pointed at the door, cold. "Get out." "Liam! Didn't you hear him tell you to get out?" Maya stood up and pushed Elena out of the ward. Only when her presence was gone from the air did I manage to catch my breath. A few days later, the nurse taking care of me said Julian looked for Elena several times, but Elena locked herself in her room, ignoring everyone. She refused to see him. Julian was going back to Boston. He couldn't stand the environment here, nor could he stand recuperating here, so he contacted the family to pick him up. But this time it wasn't a secretary who came, but my father. Julian thought father came specifically to pick him up out of concern for his health. But as soon as father got off the plane, without even glancing at Julian, he rushed into my room. I looked at my father, his face full of heartache, his imposing manner gone. I just felt this world was laughably insane. Don't tell me he, like Elena, was here to repent. I pulled my hand out of his grip, my tone cool. "Dad, you see my condition. Looks like you'll have to have another child to be Julian's blood bank." Father covered his mouth tightly, tears suddenly surging. "Liam, do you hate Dad?" Did I hate him? When I was little, I hated him. I hated him for bringing me into the world, but not loving me. I hated that he only saw Julian, always favoring Julian. I hated that he was my father. But now, I didn't hate him anymore. Because I didn't want him anymore, either. Hating too much comes from craving love too much. Now with no love, there is no hate. I looked coldly at this man who was my father in name. "Julian is in the next room. If there's nothing else, I want to rest." Perhaps my tone was too cold and hurtful. He looked at me, his lips trembling, tears flowing like a spring. "Liam, do you not even want to talk to Dad?" I frowned impatiently. "What is there to say between us? Your only son is Julian. What does it matter if I die? Can you stop acting out this melodrama? You and Elena taking turns acting these past few days, I'm really tired of watching it." Father was stunned. His face turned ashen instantly, his tone full of disbelief and defeat. "Liam, is that how you think of me? When Julian was born, his health was poor, so I gave him a lot of favoritism. But you are my son too. I didn't pay enough attention to you, but how could I not love you? Liam, don't say such things to break Dad's heart, okay?" The pleading and hurt in Father's tone were overflowing, but I couldn't help laughing out loud. "You love me? You loved me when you made me sleep in the stables? You loved me when you ignored me? Or did you love me when you made me be Julian's blood bank? Your love really makes me want to laugh. I need to rest. Please get out. Don't come looking for me again. I looked at Maya beside me. She stepped forward and led my still sobbing father out of the room. I let out a long breath. Finally, peace. After staying in the hospital for a month, Maya finally allowed me to be discharged. The day I left, the sun was bright and everything looked beautiful. Maya walked beside me and draped a jacket over me. Not wearing a jacket again. Careful you don't catch a cold. I stuck my tongue out at her, smiling sheepishly. Walking on the asphalt road, Maya suddenly mentioned a hospital she had contacted recently. My senior colleague has achieved remarkable results in the field of cancer. If you agree, I want to take you to the UK to give it a try. Maya looked at me. Liam, lots of new students came to the school. Sam and 2 other teachers are waiting for you to come back fully recovered to teach. Don't fall behind. I looked at Maya with a smile. Since we met, Maya had spared no effort to help me. Even though we didn't have much interaction growing up, I was really curious why she was so good to me. Thinking it, I said it. Maya, why are you so good to me? Maya seemed lost in thought for a moment. After a long time, she looked at me and asked back, What about you? Why did you like Elena so much? I tightened my grip on the jacket, sighed, and replied with some emotion. Because of a bowl of soup. A bowl of soup? I nodded. Do you remember when we were kids? That time you and Elena came to stay at my house for the summer? That day I was punished by Father, sleeping in the stables, not allowed to eat at the table. It was Elena who brought me a bowl of vegetable soup. I remembered that soup for a long time. Maya narrowed her eyes, looking hesitant. After quite a while, not knowing what she thought of, she suddenly laughed. I puffed out my cheeks, looking at her. What? What are you laughing at? Think my reason is too cheesy? Maya shook her head. No? Then what are you laughing at? Liam, that year you were 6 and Elena was only 9. She couldn't even reach the stove. How could she make soup for you? I froze, stopping in my tracks, looking at Maya like an idiot. She leaned in close, her dark eyes shimmering with fragmented light. She said word by word. But that year, I was 13, and as it happened, my specialty was vegetable soup. Maya curled her lips in a smile. She gently patted my head, turned, and continued walking. My mouth hung open as I watched Maya's figure. The setting sun shone on her, and sycamore leaves drifted leisurely to the ground. Maya turned around, smiling at me. It's getting dark. Let's go home. The night before Maya and I left for the UK, Elena came to see me at the school. She brought the signed divorce agreement. I signed it. I also added some conditions. I gave you 50% of the shares under my name, and all the properties under my name are yours. Elena handed me the divorce agreement. As she reached out, maybe I saw it wrong, I saw some bruises on her wrist. Seeing my gaze fall on her wrist, Elena pulled down her sleeve to hide it, explaining, Oh, couldn't sleep lately, accidentally bumped it while working out at night. I didn't care much and nodded casually. Elena's mom waited for you at the hospital for several days before knowing you were already discharged. She wanted to see you, but my sister stopped her. She cried for a long time at the hospital. 2 days ago, I heard the doctor examined Julian again. He had absolutely no issues. That night, my father-in-law left Julian in a rage and went back to Boston alone. Julian will probably marry that New York heiress as soon as he returns. She has money, but she's famous for her explosive temper. Given Julian's personality, those two probably won't have a good ending. I flipped through the divorce agreement, not really caring about their affairs. Elena lowered her head helplessly. I've said what I needed to say. I wish you all the best in the UK. We're still friends after the divorce. If you ever come back to Boston, remember to look me up. I nodded. Elena moved slowly, step by step, toward the school gate. I turned and closed the door. Hearing the door close, Elena stood silently in place, her eyes reddening. Maya booked the plane tickets. 2 other doctors traveled with us. As soon as we sat down, those 2 doctors stared at me curiously. I felt embarrassed by their stares, so I pretended to sleep. The plane flew smoothly into the sky. The roar of the engines was unavoidable in my ears. Half asleep, I heard the conversation between the 2 doctors and Maya. "Dr. Lin, we had just arrived in Tanzania a couple of days ago and you ran off to Kenya. It was because of him, right?" One doctor teased with a smile. "I wondered why you left in such a hurry. If old Wang hadn't seen your phone wallpaper, we would have really thought you loved Kenya deeply." Maya's voice carried a smile, not minding their teasing. "You saw my wallpaper?" "Yeah, old Wang saw it by accident. Heard it's a little boy riding a horse. At first we thought it was that Julian guy who's always clinging to you. Until we saw Liam, everyone realized who it was." "Not bad, Dr. Lin. Playing the childhood crush game?" They laughed softly. Even with my eyes closed, I could sense the gaze of the person beside me falling on me. Maya spoke softly. "Starting from my teens, I was forced by my dad to enter the company to inherit the family business. There was one person who held my hand and told me I could do whatever I wanted to do, that he hoped his big sister would be happy every day. Even he himself forgot what he once told me, but because of his words, I became a doctor. Fate is sometimes truly random and wonderful." Maya chuckled lightly and tucked a stray hair behind my ear. Her movements were gentle and slow, as if afraid to wake me. The conversation stopped abruptly. I half opened my eyes, looking at the purple-red clouds on the horizon. The clouds were right before my eyes, shifting near and far. The plane tirelessly flew on. We seemed to be chasing the clouds. I knew this journey would have an end. But the clouds did not. I turned my head to look at Maya beside me. She was sleeping next to me, her breathing shallow. "Maya, tomorrow will be another beautiful day worth being happy about," I thought.